So after studying this module, you should be able to understand school counseling at different levels, learn about the emphasis, roles and activities of counseling at elementary, middle and secondary school levels, learn the various counseling techniques effective at each school level, and know about the changes in the 21st century. School counseling has been recognized as an area of expertise only in the last 3 decades. However, its importance and existence can be traced back to as early as the 20th century BC. Although traditional school counseling has been considered to be important for young adolescents, research has indicated that interventions by a trained counselor benefits children of all ages, including the very young. Within the field of school counseling, the professional literature focuses on 3 distinct school age populations. First, the elementary school children, that is from grade KG kindergarten to 5th class. Second, middle school children, that is from grade 6 to 8th grade. Third, the secondary school children, that is from grade 9 to grade 12. Each of these populations has particular areas requiring intervention as well as universal needs. Let me first come to the elementary school counseling and guidance. Elementary school counseling is a relatively recent development. School authorities have now recognized the need for elementary school counseling. It is now being widely accepted that the need of the children at this level also is not merely academic development. Elementary school years set the tone for developing the attitudes and skills necessary for later years. Children develop into healthy, competent and confident learners in the present as well as future years. Through a comprehensive developmental school counseling program, the school counselors work with teachers, other school staff, parents and community to create an environment conducive for development as well as the academic growth of children. The first book on this subject was published in the 1950s. The discipline was almost non-existent before 1965. In fact, less than 10 universities offer training courses in elementary school counseling in 1964. Despite the first elementary school counselors being employed in the late 1950s, counseling as such did not gain momentum until the 1960s. In 1964, Congress passed the National Defense Education Act NDEA Title 5A, and counseling services were extended to include elementary school children. 2 years later, the Joint Committee on the Elementary School Counselors issued a report defining the roles and functions of the elementary school counselor, which emphasized the counseling, consultation and coordination. Government grants to establish training institutes for elementary school counselors were authorized in 1968, and by 1972 more than 10,000 elementary school counselors were employed. During the 1970s, the number of school counselors entering the elementary school counseling specialty initially leveled off and then fell temporarily due to the decline in school enrollments and economic problems. In the late 1980s, however, accrediting agencies and state departments of the public instruction made it mandatory that schools provide counseling services to the elementary level. This resulted in an unprecedented demand for elementary school counselors. Now let us discuss the emphasis and roles of elementary school counselors. Elementary school counselors are the front line operators in the mental health movement in the educational setting. No other profession has ever been organized to work with individuals from a purely preventive and developmental perspective. Among the tasks that elementary school counselors regularly perform are the following. Number 1. Implement effective classroom guidance. They also provide individual and small group counseling. They assist students in identifying their skills and abilities. They work with special population, develop students' career awareness. They coordinate with school, community and business sources. They consult with teachers and other professionals. They communicate and exchange information with parents and guardians. And also they participate in school improvement and interdisciplinary teams. The fact that the elementary school counselors can and do make a difference in the life of children they work with is a strong reason for keeping and increasing their services. That is one reason ASCA initiated its model. There is no denying that it is easier to handle difficulties during the younger years than at later years. Elementary school counselors who have a vision and follow it through can transform this culture of a school. The table highlights the comparison of the old and the new school culture. The old school culture was adult driven, whereas the new school culture is student driven. The other characteristics of the old school culture is that it is punishment driven, it has externally imposed discipline, it focuses on problems, it is competitive and non-collaborative until expected to change the individual, peer isolation, problem approached by adults using discipline, threats, paddle and behavior modification. Children try to solve problems by swearing, hitting and threats. Children are not empowered to change themselves and to help change others. Whereas in the new student culture or the new school culture, the culture is student driven, it helps in learning new skills, it is self-imposed discipline, it focuses on problem solving, it is cooperative and collaborative until expected to change the individual, the group and the community. It is peer supported. The problems resolved by adults using dialogue, positive interaction, cooperation and a problem solving model. Children try to solve problems by problem solving model and peer support. Children are empowered to change themselves and help change others. Individual counseling at the early school level. The primary goal of school counseling program is to help students with those aspects that may interfere with their learning and school performance. All students have the opportunity to meet the school counselor individually so as to explore issues that may be troublesome to them. With the school counselor's support and guidance, goals are set to resolve the concerns of the student. Possible topics that might be discussed are anger, friendships and peer group pressures, academic concerns, conflicts and problem solving, decision making, coping strategies and dealing with illness, death and divorce in their families. At the group level, group counseling may also be offered. Students may choose or may be referred to or may be suggested by the counselor to participate in small group counseling sessions. In small group counseling, students who share common needs or concerns come together in a safe environment to talk, share and go through role plays to improve their coping skills. Group counseling sessions were often conducted by the school counselor on a weekly basis for a period of several weeks. Sessions are scheduled through the class teacher to minimize the interference with the academic schedule. Group counseling sessions are usually scheduled during lunch break, the class activity period, before school or after school. Also, classroom guidance is provided. Classroom guidance activities are usually a part of the school curriculum. The objective of the elementary school counseling and guidance program focus primarily on the prevention aspect of the program. The counselor makes sure to visit each classroom every month in accordance with the monthly guidance calendar. A 30 to 45-minute lesson related to the developmentally and academically relevant topics is discussed with the students. The general needs of the classroom or the grade level are kept in mind while formulating these lessons. Different topics like understanding self and others, appreciation and acceptance of their classmates, peer conflict and conflict resolution, social skills, dealing with academics, time management, character development, respecting self and others, responsible behaviors, understanding and dealing with bullies, and dealing with transitions may be included. Another aspect is consultation and coordination. A very important role of the elementary school counselor is to assist teachers, school administration and other personnel to understand and meet the specific needs of each student. The counselor's role is also that of an advocate for the student's growth and learning. Working together with students, the school, the family, the counselor strives to enhance each student's performance and achievement. Now let us come to the middle school counseling and guidance. Emphasis on middle school counseling and guidance is an even more recent phenomenon than elementary school counseling. It came into prominence in the 1970s as a hybrid way to offer services for students who did not fit the emphasis given by either elementary school or high school counselors. The idea of a special curriculum and environment for pre-adolescents and early adolescents was first implemented as a junior high concept, an attempt to differentiate between younger adolescents, that is from ages 12 to 14 and grades 7 to 9, and older adolescents. Middle schools typically enroll children between the ages of 10 and 14 and encompasses grades 6 to 9. Children at this age and grade level are often referred to as bubble gummers in the US. In addition to experiencing the normal problems that exist in the family, school and community, middle school boys and girls adjust to changes in the body, pressure from peers, demands by the schools for excellence, conflicting attitudes of parents and other problems with establishing self-identity. There is very little homogeneity in this group and their most common characteristic is unlikeness. According to Dorothy, we know less about this age group than any other group. Part of the reason is that few middle school counselors conduct research or publish their findings about this population. Yet, the Gesell Institute of Child Development and other child study centers offer a description of cognitive, physical and emotional factors that can be expected during this time. Too few counselors take cognizance of this data. On a general level, however, most middle school counselors are aware of the major physical, intellectual and social developmental tasks that middle school children must accomplish. Thornburg in 1986 outlines them as becoming aware of the increased physical changes, organizing knowledge and concepts into problem-solving strategies, making the transition from concrete to abstract symbols, learning new social roles, learning new sex roles while identifying with the stereotypical role models, learning skills for developing friendships, gaining a sense of independence, and understanding responsibility which comes with independence. Now let us discuss the emphasis and roles of a middle school counselor. Schools often neglect the physical and social development of the child while stimulating intellectual growth. Middle school counseling, like elementary school counseling, seeks to correct this imbalance by focusing on the child's total overall development. The emphasis is holistic. Counselors stress not only on growth and development but also the process of transition involved in leaving childhood and entering adolescence. Their activities include working with students individually as well as in groups, working with teachers and administrators, working with education agencies, social services and other stakeholders, working with parents to address unique needs of specific children. These roles may be fulfilled more easily if counselors develop capacities and programs in certain ways. The necessary capacities, according to Thornburg, include general information about developmental characteristics of middle school children and specific tasks that students are expected to achieve. In addition, middle school counselors must understand the specific child with whom they are interacting and his or her perspective on the problem. Finally, middle school counselors need to know how to help students make decisions so that students can help themselves in the future and are not dependent on the counselor for problem solving needs. The ideal role of middle school counselors includes providing individual and group counseling, peer support systems, teacher and parent consultation, and student assessment. Now let us highlight some of the activities of middle school counselor. Working with middle school children requires both a preventive and a remedial approach. It is similar to dealing with elementary school children, except that counselors must break down barriers if they are to be truly helpful in a holistic way. The tasks involved are: number 1, prevention. One of the most promising prevention programs for middle scholars is number 1, the Succeeding in School approach, given by Gerler and Anderson in 1986. It consists of 10 50-minute classroom guidance units. This program is geared towards helping children become comfortable with themselves, their teachers, and their schools. Furthermore, this approach is designed to help students focus on behaviors, attitudes, and human relation skills that lead to improved academic success. Second program is complementary to the Succeeding in School program is Rosemary Smead's 1995 group counseling activities for children and adolescents. These activities develop life skills in children. In addition to classroom guidance, group work, middle school counselors can use individual counseling, peer counseling, and consultation activities to foster problem prevention. Third is one of the theoretical approach that helps in this process, which is called as a developmental counseling therapy or DCT. DCT incorporates the developmental concepts from individual theories such as those by Kohlberg, Gilligan, Kagan, and Erikson, along with family theories for counselors to relate to the middle school children in their preferred developmental orientation, sensory motor, concrete, formal operations, and dialectic or systemic. Fourth is other preventive type program is peer mentoring. In this arrangement, an older student such as an 8th grader is paired with a younger student through a cooperative learning arrangement. Fifth is middle school counselors may also set up a teacher advisory program or TAPS, which are based on the premise that guidance is everybody's responsibility, that there are not enough trained counselors to handle all of a school guidance needs, and that teacher-based guidance is an important supplement to school counseling. Now let us discuss what comes under remediation. One of the best ways to work remedially with the school students is to combine it with a preventive approach. The middle school counselors cannot perform all the functions alone, so they must delegate responsibility and solicit the help of other school personnel, parents, and community volunteers. The communication service cluster is primarily concerned with public relations. It is a counselor's outreach arm and is critical for informing the general public about what the school counseling program is all about. The curriculum service, however, concentrates on facilitating course placements and academic adjustment. The assessment service cluster provides testing and evaluation services and is often linked with the career resource cluster, which focuses on the student's future goals and vocation. The counseling service cluster and the crisis center cluster are closely connected. The community contact cluster focuses on working with parents and other interested people to open the lines of communication between the school and the other agencies. The professional growth cluster provides programs for school staff and other paraprofessionals. This last task is critical to the counselor's success. Now let us discuss the secondary school counseling and guidance. Secondary level school counseling and guidance began in the early 1990s, when its primary emphasis was on guidance activities that would help build better citizens. Frank Parsons influenced the early growth of the profession, although John Brewer really pushed for the establishment of secondary school guidance in the 1930s. Brewer believed that both guidance and education meant assisting young people in living. Although his ideas did not gain wide acceptance at that time, but under the new name Life Skills Training, they have become increasingly popular. The growth of secondary school counseling was particularly dramatic during the 1960s. Today, there are estimated 1 lakh counselors in schools, many of them working with secondary level students. Now let us discuss the emphasis and roles of a secondary school counselor. Counselors in high school environments concentrate on the following tasks. That is, providing direct counseling services individually, in groups, and to the school as a whole. Providing educational and support services to the parents. Offering consultation and in-service programs to teachers and staff. Delivering classroom guidance, that is up to 25% of their time as suggested by the ASCA national model. Facilitating referrals to outside agencies. Networking to post-secondary schools and businesses. And advising academically. Now let us discuss the activities of a secondary school counselor. The activities of secondary school counselors can be divided into several areas. In addition to evaluate their own activities, they are involved in prevention, remediation and intervention, and cooperation and facilitation. First is prevention. The secondary school counselors, like elementary and middle school counselors, stress preventive services. These efforts need to be comprehensive, multifaceted and integrated. The reason is that the adolescent problem outside the classroom and school problems are interrelated. Therefore, to address one situation and neglect the other usually won't work. One way to build primary prevention programs is to become familiar with the current popular songs. Second way is to run groups, particularly thematic groups, which brings together students experiencing similar problems and allows counselors to make effective use of their time and skills. Third way is to occasionally teach children preventive-based curriculum offerings in the classes. Second is remediation. Secondary school counselors initiate remediation and intervention programs to help students with specific problems that are not amenable to preventive techniques. Third is cooperation and facilitation. It involves the school counselor in a variety of community and school activities beyond that of a caregiver. Counselors who are not aware of or involved in community and school groups are not as effective as they could otherwise be. Part of a school counselor's responsibility is becoming involved with others in ways outside direct counseling services. Thus, secondary school counselors often have to take the initiative in working with teachers and school personnel. By becoming more involved with teachers, administrators and sponsors of extracurricular activities, counselors integrate their view into the total life of schools and help create the kind of school environments that stimulate growth and learning. Now let us come to school counseling in the new millennium. As the century unfolds, there have been substantial changes in the occupational and economic structures. Focus on skills development has increased. Occupational and industrial specialization continues to increase. Increasing company size and complexity is now the rule rather than the exception. This often results in job invisibility and makes the transition from school to work and from work to further academic achievement more complex and difficult. All of these changes are creating future challenges for the students. A rapidly changing world of work, increasing violence in homes, schools and communities, high divorce rates, increasing teenage suicide, substance abuse and sexual experimentation are some examples of the complex challenges students have to face today. These are real social problems which have and will continue to have an impact on personal, social, career and academic development of students. As these and other changes are taking place in society, many organizations and groups of involved persons are providing services at national, state and local levels to help students deal effectively with these complex challenges. Different purposes of guidance and counseling have been put forward by different persons and different groups. This way the case even at the beginning, when the only aspect of counseling and guidance was vocational guidance. The perception, definition and scope of counseling and guidance is influenced by a number of factors like social, political and economic conditions, personal and societal changes and other conditions present at a particular time. The role of an active and involved school counselor, however, extends beyond providing direct services to students and parents. It means that the school counselors fulfill their responsibility to take part in shaping the educational policy at the local, state and national levels. It also means that they fulfill their obligation to continue to work towards developing and expanding the scope of guidance and counseling at the state and federal levels. Finally, there is an increasing need for national and state comprehensive guidance and counseling programs, legislation that recognizes it as a program that is equal with and complementary to other programs in education. Well students, now let us summarize what all we have learnt in this module. First of all, school counseling has been recognized as an area of expertise only in the last 4 to 5 decades. Within the field of school counseling, the focus is on 3 distinct age groups: the elementary school children, the middle school children and the secondary school children. Elementary school counseling and guidance is relatively recent development. The discipline was virtually non-existent before 1965. Elementary school counselors are the front-line operators in the health movement in the field of education. They work with individuals from a purely preventive and developmental framework. Research has proved that the important role of elementary school counselors. It is easier to handle difficulties during the younger years than in later years. Elementary school counseling is conducted at both individual and group levels. The goal and purpose of school counseling program is to assist students with issues that might interfere with their learning and academic performance. Besides individual counseling, classroom guidance activities also form a part of the school curriculum. The counselor visits each classroom periodically and developmentally appropriate lessons are taken. Another role of elementary school counselor is to assist teachers, school administrators and other school personnel to meet the needs of each individual student. Emphasis on middle school counseling is an even more recent phenomenon and came into prominence in the 1970s. Middle school counseling is aimed at dealing with specific adjustment, developmental and academic problems related to pre-adolescence and early adolescence. The ideal role of the middle school counselor entails providing individual and group counseling, strengthening peer support system, teacher consultation, student assessment and parent consultation and guidance services. Working with middle school children requires both prevention and remediation. One of the most promising preventive programs for group counseling of middle school children is the Succeeding in School approach given by Gerler and Anderson in 1986. Other important preventive programs are developmental counseling and therapy, that is DCT, peer monitoring and teacher advisory programs or TAPs. These are effective for individual counseling. Secondary school counseling and guidance began in early 1900s with primary aim at building better citizens. Frank Parsons and John Brewer are the major contributors to the establishment of secondary school guidance programs in the 1930s. An important function of any school counselor is that of a constant remodeling of the counseling program to suit the current needs of the children. There have been substantial changes in the occupational, social and economic structures in the 21st century. This often results in job invisibility and makes transition from school to work difficult. The role of secondary school counselor is to help students in this area by providing relevant information and developing job relevant skills. The vision for guidance and counseling in the present millennium is fully implemented comprehensive guidance and counseling programs which are and will serve all students and their parents, staffed by active and involved school counselors.